saint, but not like any other saint. His connection to the cross is close and indirect, but at least at first he was venerated more as king, and his cult was influenced by elements. In the Forum, for example, there was a column supporting a statue of the emperor in the guise of a horn. The head was surrounded by 7 rays and received all very similar to clothes associated with imperial cult, like offering of lambs and infants. There are interpreted as sacrifice by Theostolius, an Arian author who perhaps argued against Constantine for promulgating the canons of the Council of Nicaea, excommunicating Arius and anthemizing his doctrine. However, it's known that Constantine did not oppose certain forms of imperial cult. He abhorred blood sacrifice, but not offering of this kind. This description presents a different view of Constantine from the well-known one provided by Eusebius of Caesarea in the life of Constantine. And Comnena recorded the ambiguity of the statue in Constantine's forum. It was said to be a statue of Apollo by the inhabitants of Constantinople called Danteus. King Constantine the Great, father and lord of the city, replaced this name with his own and called the monument the statue of Autocrat Constantine. However, the first name prevailed, and everyone continued to call it the statue of Annelius or Antaeus. Suddenly, a violent storm blew in from Africa, and on top of the statue, with the sun, was in the sign of Taurus. Many interpreted this as a bad omen. The Christianization of the statue, therefore, was never fully completed until it collapsed in volume 5. After which it was replaced by a cross. To fully Christianize the forum and erase, or at least diminish, the traces of Constantine's pagan past, a greater effort was required, which resulted in the construction of a chapel at the base of the column and the placing of relics there. It even went so far as to associate the statue with the names of the Constitution, which were said to have been inserted into the spokes, and even after the Romans fall, the legend persisted, at least until the 15th century, despite the mass Hellenist Catholic relegation. Constantine's transformation into a saint was therefore not an easy matter. In the early Byzantine chronicles, he is described as great or divine, but not as a saint. Malalas and the Chronicon Pascale use Theotatos to describe him, not Arius. Certain elements of his biography, such as his military exploits and even more so, his private life, including the death sentence imposed on his son Crispus and the murder of his wife Fausta, were well known and hardly conducive to canonization. If the legends surrounding Constantine the Lyon developed between the late 4th and the early 5th centuries, the creation of an organized cult by the Church of Constantinople was established later. During the 5th century, a festival was held in Jerusalem in honor of Constantine, linked to the dedication of the martyrdom, the basilica he had founded. This celebration is mentioned in Northern and Armenian liturgical books of Jerusalem, dated 22nd of May, the day of Constantine's death. Cult would therefore have developed in Palestine before reaching Constantinople during the period of exaltation that followed the return of the true cross by Emperor Heraclius. Maria Mandelmango draws attention to the image of St. Constantine on a silver censer, originating from Syria or Lebanon and dating from the 7th century. The inscription identifies Constantine as a saint. The emperor is depicted with military garb and not with a spear but with a cross. This is believed to be the earliest iconographic evidence of a cult of Saint Constantine. In the capital, the cult of Constantine experienced a significant surge between the 7th and the 10th centuries, encouraged on several occasions by the emperors. In Constantinople, Constantine was celebrated during the Feast of the Cross, but he also had a feast day shared with Saint Helena on 21st of May. The earliest liturgical record of a feast day shared by Saint Constantine and Helena dates back to the 8th century and invariably began Constantine and Helena shared their feast day with the other saints such as Mark and Heraclius in the Typicon of Patmos. Constantine and Helena were later included in the Synaxarium of Constantinople, the first edition of which was compiled by Evariscus at the behest of Constantine VII. Constantine's cross was kept in the palace chapel dedicated to Saint Stephen. The emperor would go to venerate it when he left the palace to attend a ceremony, and would take it with him when he went to celebrate the liturgy in Hagia Sophia. The cross was a double sign of victory, by the emperors over the enemies of the empire and by Christ over death. In the mosaic at the entrance of the Basilica of Hagia Sophia, Constantine, depicted on the left, presents the Virgin Mary with a model of the city, whilst on the right, Justinian hands over a model of the Basilica. The iconography of Saint Constantine depicts him as a mounted soldier and in scenes relating to his dream and his vision of the cross. The legend of the discovery of the true cross by his mother Helena is also incorporated into Constantine iconography. The queries, ivory critics, and crosses are leading to the discovery of the true cross became widespread. Finally, an iconographic type was established. The two figures stand on either side of the cross, which is placed at the center of the composition. Constantine and Helena were regal Byzantine robes and crowns adorned with precious stones. In many cases, the cross is also adorned with precious stones and pearls. The hands of the two figures reach towards the cross in a gesture which is emphasizing the importance of the precious relic, at the same time invites to its glorification and veneration. As for the West, however, it did not immediately pay homage to the emperor, but merely recognized its merits toward the church. Since the Western Christians did not know Constantine as a true Christian during his life, they could not venerate him as a saint after his death. In the years following the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, Constantine visited Rome only 3 times and for brief periods. The last time in 326, when his conversion was not yet clear. In this regard, an infallible judgment about the emperor expressed in St. Jerome carried great weight in Rome. In his Chronicon, he described him as inclined towards Arianism, because he had been baptized by Eusebius, bishop of Nicomedia, without emphasizing that Constantine had been in urgent need of baptisms there, because his life was in danger, not because of any adherence to Arianism. Jerome later revisited the same events, as in his letter to Eudorus, and made no further mention of Constantine's Arian baptism. However, the negative portrayed in the Chronicon had already become widespread and had such an impact in the West that later on, someone in the Roman Curia felt compelled to compile the Actus Silvestri, in which Pope Sylvester was presented as the Emperor's Minister of Baptism instead of Eusebius. At the popular level, however, the cult of Constantine spread rapidly, but only in certain regions of the West. In Italy, Sardinia represents a particular case. In the 11th and 12th centuries, three judges of Gallura bore the name Constantine, with the names of the common people used by dialect variants, as attested by the Condati, the monastery's property registers. We find Gosantine, Gosantine, Goantine, Constantine, Gantine, and women Gosantina and Goantina. Many buildings feature splendid depiction of the saints, such as on the lintel of the cathedral. The cathedral of St. Peter in Bosa, where the figures of St. Constantine and the Madonna and Child are placed between St. Peter and Paul. Also in Bosa, the frescoes in the chapel of the Malaspina Castle depict St. Constantine and Helena on either side of the cross and with the instruments of the Passion. The main center of the cult of St. Constantine in Sardinia, however, is the sanctuary located in the countryside of Sedigo, in the diocese of Alghero Bosa in province of Oristano. The festival of St. Constantine had been held between the 6th and the 7th of July, with a mass celebrated every hour, the idea and the procession. The main attraction of the festival is the idea, a race involving around 200 horsemen held to honor the saint and commemorate his victories. The procession, led by the parish priest and the mayor, passes through the village and descends to a small hill known as Sulfantighetto, where all the horsemen are together. The same church stands opposite on the hill on the other side, where the crowd of pilgrims is waiting. The parish priest, accompanied by the mayor, breaks away from the horsemen, and once it reaches the same church, the race may begin. The horsemen work around a fan-shaped formation, 3 times for west to east and 3 times for east to west. At the end of the 6th lap, the horsemen resume the race toward the church. Then, as the way breaks, they scatter across the slopes of the hill. During their ride, the horsemen try to St. Constantine every time they pass in front of the church door and the cross. At the end, they attend the Holy Mass. It's also worth mentioning the Rabbina in Sardinia, which is the site in Sedilo. St. Constantine is asked to intercede for the forgiveness of sins. As for St. Helena, in 7th century, a book written by Agostino Tola of Italia claimed that Helena was of Sardinian origin, which is clearly false. There are also some ancient gospels in which the saint is referred to as Sardinian. Surely the cult of St. Helena is very ancient in Sardinia. The island came to have more than 250 churches dedicated to Constantine's mother, and today Sardinia still has more sanctuaries dedicated to St. Helena than any other region in Western Europe. Sardinia can boast the distinction of being home to only basilica dedicated to the saint, that of Quarto St. Helena. Atlas with their son, the Condati records are also of interest regarding the saint, as the name Helena appears frequent in Sardinian, Helene, etc., born by both servants and women of high social standing, for confirming the spread of the cult and a close connection between the island and the two saints. Thank you.